Together. Good afternoon, Rotary Club of Flint. This is a wonderful, blustery Friday, the 13th. Read into that what you will. Welcome. Glad to have you all here today for our Church Retreat Week. And of course, it wouldn't be a Friday for Rotary if we didn't honor some of the other special things that are happening today. So it's Public Radio Broadcaster Day. So shout out to your local public media stations. It's National Peach Melba Day, National Sticker Day, and for those of you who love your bubble bath, it's also Rubber Ducky Day. Now, also importantly is to recognize that Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And with that, want to recognize that certainly, Martin Luther King Jr. is somebody who is revered and celebrated quite rightly today. But also it's worth noting that during his lifetime, he was not perceived that way by the majority of people in this country. In fact, I think something like 2/3 of Americans had a disfavorable opinion of him back in 1966 rather. And so for me, I like to reflect on that just because it's a reminder of sometimes how important it is to really reflect on how do we do right in the moment? How do we do the hard thing in the moment when sometimes the hard thing is the right thing? So this photo right here is from his final campaign in Memphis for the sanitation workers strike. If you haven't had the chance to read or listen to some of his speeches in their entirety, then I would certainly encourage you to do that. That it's a lot different than just hearing some of the excerpts. So that's one among many ways to honor his legacy this coming week. So with that, let's go ahead and proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And as Rotarians, we try to live by the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build a better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? For inspirational method, I'd like to invite up Ellen Eccles.
She's the operator.
She is. Right, so.
Well, today we're going to hear about the economy a little bit and the stock market, which is not my forte. I don't know about anybody else in this room, but what I do know is that it's maybe a little point of stress for people, especially in the last few years. So we have the professionals here who are going to tell you what you should be doing with your portfolio. And I'm here to tell you to maybe relax a little bit, and when things get a little dicey and you really don't want to open up your portfolio statement and see how things are going, just take a minute and do something fun. When I was a fourth grader, I was introduced to Shel Silverstein and the poem called Sick. I was hooked the minute I heard that. So Where the Sidewalk Ends, the book where that poem is, made the top of my Christmas list, and to my joy, it made it under the tree that year. And I read it cover to cover over and over and over. And I still have my book, and it's a little yellow and dog-eared, but it is one of my favorite books. In fact, when I volunteer for reading to elementary kids, I just bring that book. It's a lot of fun. So there is a poem in there that relates a little bit to today, and I'm going to share it with you. It's called Smart. My dad gave me $1 bill because I'm his smartest son, and I swapped it for 2 shiny quarters because 2 is more than 1. Then I took the quarters and traded them to Lou for 3 dimes. I guess he didn't know that 3 is more than 2. Just then along came old blind Bates, and because he can't see, he gave me 4 nickels for my 3 dimes. And 4 is more than 3. And then I took the nickels to Hiram Combs down at the feed store, and the fool gave me 5 pennies for them. And 5 is more than 4. And then I went and showed my dad, and he got red in the cheeks and closed his eyes and shook his head. Too proud of me to So just think about curling up Shel Silverstein and just leave those envelopes to the side and don't open your email.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Please enjoy your lunch and we'll reconvene in a bit. Back, Rotarians, you are of course welcome to continue eating if you're still in the midst of your meal. But as you do so, we'll go ahead and get started with a couple of announcements. Okay, so a couple of announcements. One is that tomorrow we have a service opportunity. This is one of several events that the American Red Cross does throughout the year, where this particular opportunity was brought to us by Rob Bennett. And so this is an initiative that the Red Cross does in order to try to prevent fire deaths by installing smoke alarms in homes. There have been unfortunately a number of house fires in Flint in recent years. And so the hope is that by making sure more houses have working smoke detectors, that if there is a house fire, that everybody gets out safely. So tomorrow they are going to be installing smoke alarms and need volunteers to help with that. They're going to be meeting at the police mini station on the corner of Martin Luther King and I believe it's Bishop. So just a little bit south of Pearson Road. And it's going to be going on from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you are interested in participating with that, I don't know that you have to commit to the full time, but you can see Rob Bennett for some details. They also have the sign up opportunity on geneseeserves.org. That's the county-wide kind of hub for volunteer opportunities. And so you can also go on to geneseeserves.org, and it's one of their featured Martin Luther King service opportunities. I also want to acknowledge that we had some Rotarians involved in club service this past week. So Jean Dennis has been leading the valiant effort to go through the repository of Rotary items that have been stored at the SCAF building for some time. He was joined by, I think, Mike Chafee and Victor George this past week. So we had a few people involved with that. And he has a vintage opportunity to share with us.
Thank you, President Elizabeth. Rotary members, guests. As Elizabeth has said, I was given the opportunity or the challenge, as the case may be, to see what we could do with the Rotary archives that are being stored at SCAF's warehouse over on the west side of Flint. They've been stored there since Flint Rotary stopped residing at the service center. So you know that that's been a decade or so that they were last stored there. Well, I once again want to thank Vic George and Mike Chafee for helping me last Tuesday as we did a preliminary survey and search through the merchandise. We went through everything that we had, categorized them into 3 categories. Those that are archivable, those that are questionable, and those that are junk. Okay, that's the three categories we've come up with. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. A few of you were members of the Flint Club during the 90s. How many were members during the 90s? A few hands went up. Okay. If that were the case, you will remember that Tony Mansour, once our president, and also a judge and a lawyer in the area, spent the decade of the 90s videotaping every Flint Rotary meeting. And I estimate that he probably did somewhere in the range of 500 videos during that time period of Flint meetings. That camera that you see right over here, right here, was used by Tony. He would sit at the front table or near one of the front tables, have the camera aimed up at the speaker's podium and videotaped every meeting, as I said. Now, here's the opportunity for all of you. This historic video camera and the tripod was part of the archives that we determined needed to find a new home. Now, I realize that monetary value is questionable because it's a 30-year-old piece of electronics. The tripod is fully usable if anybody has camera equipment and would like a tripod. It's in excellent shape. Now, as I said, monetary value, questionable. Historic value, it's priceless. Okay, with that in mind, what I would like to do is find somebody here that would like one or both pieces to take home with you today in the trunk of your car as you leave. The cost, a small donation of your choice to the Rotary Flint Charitable Foundation would do. Now, with that in mind, I'll be up here after the meeting, disassembling the equipment. And I expect a line of people up willing to make a contribution to the Flint Rotary Charitable Foundation for the opportunity of taking that home. Okay, President Elizabeth, I just want to warn you and everybody else, there's more stuff yet to come in future meetings, so stay tuned. I'll see everybody after the meeting, right after.
Thank you very much, Dean, and no fair signing these receipts early in order to be at the front of the line. Yes, and so we will have other opportunities to help make use of our experience.
I'll give $100 if Rob School will take it home.
If there's anybody here who's definitely a DCR player, it's Rob, yeah.
You got it.
All right. Very good.
Pretty high tech for you.
Yeah, so for folks on Zoom who may not have heard, Dan Craney stood up and said that he would give $100 if Rob Jewell would take it home. And Rob Jewell just went up front and of course posed with it very lovingly. So
I'm just checking out the item.
he's just, yeah, checking out the item. All right, so I would also just like to note, as I thank Gene and his crew for stepping forward to help us go through the archive, just a reminder for everybody about how important the club service really is. It helps make these meetings and our club overall function so much more smoothly. I know that we have a variety of folks who consistently step up, oftentimes week after week, to fill various roles. And so I just want to share an appreciation for everybody who has been doing that, and an encouragement for anybody who maybe hasn't done some of the club service for a while. There's a real opportunity to be of service to the club. I know Jane Odell does her darndest to recruit people by hook or by crook for each meeting, whether it's to do the inspirational message, to help with setup and takedown, to do the bulletin notes, and that sort of thing. And that really does make it so much easier. I know that there are some months where we tend to have a lot of Rotarians who are in that month, and traditionally people do club service during their birth month. And there's other months where maybe we don't have as many folks. So if that's something that you're ever in a position, you're going to be here and wouldn't mind stepping forward to help out with that, I know that would be truly appreciated. And Jane Odell would be the best person to contact for that. Another thing I'll just make a note of is we throughout this year have been playing with the Zoom experience and trying to make sure that it's as good as possible for our friends on Zoom as well as folks in the room. And so one of the things that we're going to be trying out today is that we have a handheld microphone. And so we're going to try to ask if you have a question in the audience or that sort of thing, to please let us bring you the mic so that we have a better chance of you being heard on Zoom. And also, if you're somebody who is responding to a question that's been asked, if you can repeat it if it's not been heard well, so that we can make sure that one way or the other, everybody gets a chance to hear. All right, that's all I have for housekeeping announcements. Let's go ahead and welcome. We have some guests, I think, here today. So any guests that we have?
Yeah. It was.
All right, so come on, you're gonna help us test out the mic here. Jerry. All right, we'll turn you all around and.
Anyway. And also David, and so
Thank you for modeling use of the mic, Jerry. And I guess I'll ask for folks on Zoom if you can give us a thumbs up if you could hear that. And a thumbs down if you couldn't. Oh, go. All right, so we met with the bank today to try to figure out why the audio quality isn't quite as good. I think it's an ongoing process, it sounds like. So I think for today, when we get to have our guest speakers up here, I'm going to turn the laptop around. I know it picks up sound from the laptop. It's not picking it up so well from this microphone. So we'll just try to make sure the laptop is a little closer so that everybody on Zoom can hear that better. All right. I don't believe we had any guests on Zoom today. Are there any health and welfare updates that folks would like to share? No? Okay.
Dan Crane is here and he's down next to him.
No. Thank you, Gary. Our thoughts and well wishes certainly go out to the whole British family on that. Okay. Well, knowing that it's been a hard season for a lot of people, you know, for however you're carrying the season, wishing you peace and comfort. Okay. Then we'll go ahead with the 50-50 raffle. We've got Fred here. Fred is back with his bucket and a very fair, legitimate lottery.
Was very fair. I believe that all the money here is mine, but what do I know?
All
And
right.
I will, first of all, I have to give a shout out to Jerry Noodle and to Kyle. When I was at the hockey game, I had difficulty getting down to the ice and getting to my car, and my Rotarians made sure I got both. I'm not certain if they got me with the car just to get me out, and maybe I'd keep going, but their help is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Now, I'm looking for an honest man or honest woman to you. You're gonna stir the pot. I'm very skeptic. Yeah,
Remember who your friends are now.
I do.
No, you read it. Or do you want me to do it?
You can read it.
I'm allowed.
Somebody please do it.
82219.
Okay. Third.
Yes. Second place.
Where's my knife?
It's in there somewhere.
Everybody's bending this. 82272.
Amy?
Oh, I said it was Enough to take them out, didn't
I think you're making sarcastic remarks.
I did that.
Grand prize gallons of gas. Or maybe your future fortune.
82233. Is it mine?
No.
Off by one. Uh-oh.
Nobody
Anybody gonna claim it?
going once, going twice? We'll go to another card.
Go to another card.
The excitement is building.
Yes.
What do you think? Gonna draw another. Drew another. No holding the other one. All right, here we go.
82235.
Congratulations. I'll take care of that. And may I offer my apologies to our guests. I couldn't get the torches and ropes here in time for their for Nick and the brokers. Next year, perhaps.
Next year, Dean. But thank you very much, Fred, for the lottery as always. Yeah, so I just want to note that the two first prize ones were the ones on either side of my ticket. So I'm not going to take that first. It's up. All right. So with that, then we are going to proceed with the featured part of our panel presentation today. I'm going to welcome up Nick Godleski, who is the guru of Kearsley Street Week, the financial professional extraordinaire and heir to the Dartman legacy.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Bunch of stuff. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. Always like to start with a little bit of history just to wet everybody's whistle. The first Rotary Club of Flint's Kearsley Street Week was January 25th, 1994, with past President George Carpenter as host. And in 1994, unemployment was almost 7%. Today we're at about 3.5%. The Dow Jones opened up about 3,500. Yeah. The average cost of a new car, $12,000. Anyone know what it is today?
136.
$48,000. I just looked that up yesterday. Back in 1994, prominent deaths of Richard Nixon, John Kennedy. I'm a very John Kennedy fan. The White House launched its webpage as Netscape was arriving as an internet leader. Rob Jewell, you using Netscape yet? In my car, I paid about $13. Thank you. Speaking of dollars, there in 1994, some economics in 1994, $1.94 today is worth about 46 cents. A gallon of gas was about $1.11, and you could get a Sony Discman in '94 for $250. Yeah, but welcome to the 30th Kearsley Street Week program. I will hold for applause. Let's continue with just a little bit more history. So back in 1994, when we started, Bill Clinton was president. The market closed at 3,800. The Dow Jones. George Bush came in. It was at 10,800. That was our 8th Kearsley Street Week. When President Obama started, that was our 16th. About 8,000 is where it was at. Donald Trump came in at our 24th, 19,800. And then that's $5 for somebody. I'll take that. And then Joe Biden, when he started, it was around 31,000. And the Dow Jones closed out in 2022 at 33,147, down about 9%. This is in contrast to the S&P 500, which was down almost 20%. The previous year was up 29%, And the NASDAQ, which is an index, it's very tech heavy, large cap growth companies. It really took it by the chin. It went down 33% in 2022. So these industries are all different. We use the Dow because I guess we're kind of old school right now, but generally speaking, S&P 500 is probably our best marker, our best benchmark. Today, Friday the 13th, the Dow is up almost 3% year to date. So we've had a good couple of weeks. In 1972 was when it first closed above 1,000 points. As with every year, our panel and I will make our stock picks and predictions for the Dow, and then I'm going to open it up for some Q&A. Let me begin by introducing our overly qualified yet embarrassingly modest, revered, and prestigious panel. Ken Schluchter is on year number 8 with the panel. Ken has 28 years of investment experience, the previous 8 being at Huntington Bank, where he is currently the senior portfolio manager. He is a 2-time graduate with a BA and an MBA from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Ken is an impressively versatile individual. Used to be a microbiologist, computer programmer, and a military pilot in his previous life. Please welcome Ken Schluchter of Huntington Bank. Kind enough to join us for his 3rd year on the panel from Putnam Investments, senior regional consultant. Dave Fisher is a native of Michigan and a graduate of the University of Michigan. Dave has been in the investment industry since 2004. He has 2 sons, and he married his high school sweetheart, who is a journalist and a news anchor. In an effort to become a well-rounded individual, Dave's original career was as a professional singer, as a tenor, where he sang across North America as a soloist for the symphonies of Cincinnati, Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, Toronto, and Naples. Also an avid golfer. Please welcome from Putnam Investments, David Fisher. Did you promise you were going to sing for us a little bit? Next year.
I probably have to save for my lunch, so there's,
Joining us by recorded video while on his tour for his book signing for his new book, Bullseye, How I Became a Multi-Millionaire and Quit My Job at SCAP with only a dart and a one-way plane ticket. Dartman Dave is a past president of the Rotary Club of Flint, dating all the way back to the Clinton administration. This year, the Dartman could not be here in person, citing, I'm retired, stop bugging me. Don't get up and leave just yet. We found a way for him to grace us with his presence and knowledge later on in the program. I know what you're saying. Oh, Nick, I don't come here for the darts. I'm here for the statistics. Fear not, as a 2-year streak has begun. Still excited off of the thrilling Michigan State basketball win against the Wolverines less than a week ago. Mr. Rob Bennett joins us as our esteemed statistician. Another past president of the Rotary Club of Flint, Rob is the face of the aptly named Bennett Communication, where he leads the crew there using his brain power derived from Michigan State University. Go White! Fight, fight! And I am your host, Nick Godleski, financial advisor at Raymond James, graduate of Michigan State University, as well as the University of South Florida. I am currently a board member of the Crim Fitness Foundation, the MSU Football Players Association, and your Rotary Club of Flint. I am also the upright bass player for the Mott College Jazz Ensemble. And somehow I own a whole gaggle of hats. One day it will be the Mott Jazz College. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Kersey Street Week 2023 panel. Last year, at this time, we were coming off of a strong 2021 market. The S&P was up almost 30%, but with a heck of a lot in the burner just waiting to boil over. Supply chain issues, continuing pandemic, global war issues, Fed rate hikes over and over and over and over again. And let's not forget, there actually was a little bit of turmoil in DC. Gas prices were high, not high, high. I don't really know where gas prices were, but the rumor mill has it that the big rigs at Exxon did pretty well this year in their personal. And this all proved to be too frothy for the market. So with this, let's see how all of you and our panel did. Everybody has the paper on there. Miss Elizabeth, President Elizabeth, can you help me just throw that up there? Oh, I'm on the screen. Oh. Well, let's start a little bit with our panel here. I did all right with only a negative almost 37%. I had exact science. I will go on to mention, I'm gonna see, I wrote down my numbers here somewhere. Since the new year exact science, I hope you guys didn't sell because it's up 42% in the last 2 weeks. So I assume you guys didn't sell. Jay Fisher, you were the big loser last year though. At basically a negative 45% NVIDIA. NVIDIA has also been up 14% in the last 2 weeks. Dartman Dave threw a pretty good dart. Snap-on, the tool company, came up around 6.8%. But Ken Schlechter, you killed it. You were the winner. You actually picked a real winner, almost 9% north with Formed Pharmaceuticals. I'm going to make a comment here and I'll let you explain this later. If I'm assuming you all sold it on that date, on December, because that's the return of December 31st. Because the last 2 weeks that stock is down 80%.
Well, that was yesterday.
I know. Reg, you're going to keep working for a few more years, huh?
Yeah, you told me not to sell it.
No. I didn't. So the Dow Jones, we've seen this happen a few times where everybody's on the opposite side, and it's really interesting. Everyone's on the opposite side again. I was relatively confident. I think I gave it an 11% jump. We're all pretty close there though, but ultimately, no one does better than just throwing a dart sometimes. The Dartman Dave did best on the panel there. But as far as Rotarians, I can't totally confirm this, but the statistician tells me that he won. And he came up with 33,656, still north of where it finished last year. But the benefit to this is the trophy for the winner was already in his hands, and he gets to just hang on to it, and he will display it, I assume, somewhere prominently. Please send a picture for the newsletter. Thank you, sir. Okay, now that's all in the past. Now that everyone in this room either has to wait an extra 5 years to retire, or if you haven't, you've probably come out of retirement. I'd like to hear what our super smart esteemed panelists have to say. Ken, since based on your stock pick, you are clearly the most qualified. Will you please be the first to indulge us with your stock pick and your Dow pick so we can cheat off your answers? Ken Schluck. We need to come on up. Come on up. Or you can do it.
Yes, sir. Pharmaceuticals, like we used to say in the Navy, it's all about time on target. You have to be there. And the time on target was 12:30, so I was up 9%. When I'm flying away, I'm not responsible. But it did. It had, I think it was at 10 and a quarter, something like that. And yesterday, I barely follow because I don't actually own it. Just recommended it. But I do follow because I have a customer who owns a minimal number of shares, and they came out with a phase 3 trial that didn't go quite as well as they hoped on a insulin delivery product that they had, and it dropped 80% yesterday. So thank you for looking it up on January 30th or December 30th. So this year, seeing that I nailed volatility last year, I figure I went around with this pick, talked to a number of colleagues. They inevitably groaned and said, "You lost your mind." I said, "I'll make it interesting at least." And I tried to catch my share of falling knives, but this year I'm gonna go with Tesla. Just, I mean, at 380, I wouldn't have touched it. At 112, it looks kind of interesting to me. I mean, there's a number of reasons. They're still projected to grow 40% next year in vehicle delivery. Right now at what's 112, something like that. PE is about 37, which isn't really so bad for a company that's supposed to grow like we're supposed to. You're paying about 20,000 per vehicle sold, and market value is about 20,000 per vehicle sold, where Ford, GM are typically in the 10 to 15,000. But I don't really see GM and Ford growing 40% in the next year. They just announced some price cuts today. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. The market didn't like it so much, so after this, you probably pick it up cheaper than it was this morning.
That's what was 101 on Monday.
Yeah, it was. It's popped back some since then. So, I mean, if you were seriously thinking of buying it, and if you've been listening to me at all, I'm all about diversification. I'm all about buying large, diversified baskets of things. But I would scale into it over the next few months because there's still some volatility left. Buying something that's dropped below its 200-day moving average and also was below its 20-day moving average is usually not a good idea. But it's just the way California is going with EVs. I think long-term, at least if you're a long-term investor, it'd be a good idea. Whether next December 30th, it's going to be up, we'll see. But anything that drops this far and is this promising, it's this big company, I kind of like to look at with some of my play money. So that being said, with the economy, I'm usually overly optimistic, so I'm trying to temper myself this year. Obviously, last year, anything was overly optimistic, anything being optimistic. So this year, we're at 34,190, I think, right now. So my prediction is going to be 35,250, which is up about a little over 6%, 6.7%. We're about halfway there, actually, for the year. So it's often said often on MSNBC that January the January effect doesn't necessarily lead to the end of the year. But the way we're starting this year, international's done very well, small caps done well. NASDAQ starting to bounce back, the NVIDIAs of the world, things like that. So I'm personally more optimistic, but I do represent the bank, and the bank isn't as optimistic as I tend to be, which they shouldn't be. We're a bank.
Tesla is at 120 today. It was 160 a month ago. And Tesla,
Yeah,
they're in the news like every day now.
I did research all the way since this morning.
I heard they got a guy that.
I really went to Texas Roadhouse, but I did.
All right, next up from Putnam Investments, David Fisher.
But it's great to see you all again this year. Thank you for having me back. With my 50% accuracy rate at either delivering a winner or a loser in my first 2 years, I am twice as good at predicting the events of the year ahead as the Fed. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. We came to learn how many PhDs do you think the Federal Reserve employs? I'll tell you, it's just over 400. If you go back, their entire ability to predict the year ahead's economy, just 12 months forward, the U.S. economy, they run an accuracy rate of 26%. So the smartest people can't figure it out. I'm feeling a lot better about my pick last year. Which leads me to my thought for 2023. NVIDIA was my pick last year. And the theory in this whole thing was that here is a incredibly high quality, high profit margin chip maker that will benefit from this eternal growth in the 5G, right? All this metaverse and business we're talking about. Well, it ran into its kryptonite, which are radically higher rates imposed by the Federal Reserve and radically higher than expected inflation. And that's like kryptonite to a growth stock. Well, we think at Putnam that inflation is rolling over. It's coming off the boil quite quickly. The Fed is nearing its end. So as a result, I'm going to keep my same thesis and I'm going to double down on NVIDIA for 2020. It's down about 60%. It was cut in half at one point last year. So I am not a stock picker. You can talk to Nick about this. But here we are coming off the boil. It's had a great start to the year. We think tech and quality, more importantly, quality growth companies do very, very well when the economy is slowing. The economy, we would agree, is slowing. I'm sure we're going to get into this in our conversation. We can talk about our predictions for that. But as the economy slows and the Fed begins to come to the end of its hiking cycle, the kryptonite that was shining its, its ugliness on NVIDIA 2022, I think kind of eases, and that company will be benefiting from its strong fundamentals. As for my prediction for the Dow, I'm going to go 36.5, which represents about I think it's a 6% increase over where we were to start the year. But I'm really leaning on the idea that the Dow is a price-weighted index. And if a couple of these names that were really hurt last year, I mean, it was the best performing broader market index. There are a couple of names that need to do well in the Dow, and I think you get a little extra lift from what we'd expect from the broader market, of probably 3 or 4%. Putnam's call for the S&P 500 this year is 4,100. That's about 110 points ahead of where it is right now. Call it 3%, 2%. We've had a couple of percent move already year to date. We think returns will be more moderate. Kind of add that logic and math to the world we're in. You look at the Dow components, and that gets us to 36.5. With that, thank you very much for having me back, everybody. Good to see you.
Right. NVIDIA's trading at just wrote it down, 166 right now. 180 a month. Guys are both on trend. NVIDIA. So do you research it?
I do.
Well,
Yeah,
I recently read in an email that I got that 2022 was a bad year for the markets. My very smart TV channel, Bloomberg and CNBC, keep saying things like inflation peak, very much in line, soft landing, headline inflation, or CPI, recession, non-farm payrolls, and something about 15 rounds of voting to decide who will prosecute all of our presidents over classified documents. Basically, what this all meant was essentially that nothing worked. Bonds are supposed to play defense, and they stunk. The bond index went down 13%. So to give you a little bit of perspective on this, in 2008, during the financial crisis, the bond market went up almost 6%. So what did we learn from all this? I'm not quite sure yet. What I do know is that every time we go to listen to those very smart economists at the U of M Flint Economic Forum in December, we walk away feeling like the sky is falling. A very astute past president Rotary said to me at the Economic Forum this year, he said, we come here to feel bad in December, and then we come to Kearsley Street Week to feel good again in January. Thank you, Kyle. So with that in mind, one fun stat I heard this week is that 66% of the time, the year following a down year becomes an up year. So I have about a 2/3 confidence that this will be an up year. My Dow pick for 2023, 37,400, roughly a 10% gain. I am 66% confident that I am 100% right. So that's the Dow. But you guys really want to know what the real sleeper is. You want to put all your eggs in one basket. And with the price of eggs these days, that's probably a small basket. Hold for topical egg joke laugh. Man, your expectations are getting too high. Kearsley Street Week. I go into Target these days with no plan. I just go in. Then I come out with stuff. I've come to learn that I'm not the only one. This may be irresponsible for me financially, but I'm striving to change that. Not by spending less at Target, but by investing. I believe that Target has solid upside potential in 2023 as the company laps a handful of transitory costs that impacted the 2022 results. I remain optimistic on the company's risk-return profile, their market share opportunities, and margin recovery in the coming years. The underlying earnings power and performance of Target's business is notably better than what the current results are showing. And admittedly, Target's 2022 performance was disappointing. It was down almost 34%. I see this as plenty of space for gains. Target's inventory positions improving, which creates the potential to regain some of the cost pressures that negatively impacted its 2022 results. One headwind I might face is that Target's already up about 7%. But I get a bit of a freebie because they get a 2.7% dividend. So that's already going to be a gain. So the ticker TGT today, Target's trading around 160 as of this morning. And I see it sniffing around 185. And what I want you all to remember is that you don't need a bullseye in 2023. You just have to be on target. Thank you. I'm just trying to see what works and what doesn't. I get an advantage that way. And speaking of bullseyes, now is the time where you get to see what it's really like to be retired after a pandemic and a global market collapse. On to Dark Man Day.
Greetings from Dartmouth and way back here in the past. Happy to be included in the Christmas Street Week from back here on January 5th. I want to share a few thoughts on the economic horizon, which by the time you hear this, it'll be obsolete and obtuse. There's a wide range of confusing issues to cloud the economy in 2023. We have chaos in Congress, bankruptcy, cryptocurrency, and a wobbling real estate, and it turns out that we can't even depend on Southwest Airlines. Elon Musk seems to be making billion-dollar decisions based on a horoscope for the whim of whoever thought of it. Twitter. Congressman George Santos apparently lied about his work history, education, income, and possibly his original hair color, but he will still take office because there are no rules against it. I had several jokes about that bit of news, but nothing as funny as the truth. Then Bankman-Fried had FTX entered a not guilty plea to criminal charges that he defrauded investors and looted billions of dollars that led to the bankruptcy of the company. I'm sympathetic to those who lost their investment. But anytime someone in a t-shirt and shorts tells you he can make you rich, look for the exit. If you're still trying to figure out what cryptocurrencies are, I'm of the opinion that it's the money the tooth fairy leaves under your pillow. Ironically, the only sensible voice that seems to be rising above the crowd is that of ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence model released by OpenAI. You can ask the model virtually anything, and it answers in clear language and sensible logic that makes the most struggling human beings look like dolts. None of this helps in predicting what lies ahead. Luckily, you're not relying on past performance or my opinion to make good decisions about your money. Possibly because I'm not wearing shorts and a t-shirt. One thing I'll tell you is if there is a recession this year, as a lot of people are predicting, you're going to be ready for it. The smart people in this room will give you good advice, but there's something else. This week I stumbled upon a speech from John F. Kennedy that he made here in Flint in 1962. In it, he talked about the chaos in Washington, the divisive political party, the erratic economy, and how 2 years before Flint had a 20% unemployment rate. I was reminded then that there's no tougher group of people than those who have been hardened in the kiln of difficult times. For 60 years and longer, we have dealt with the best and worst economy in the world. Whatever lies ahead in 2023, you're going to be strong enough to beat it. Hope this finds you folding your money in half and putting it in your pocket. Now here's my prediction for 2020. All right, I'm standing the regulation 15 feet away from the target, and I'm now going to throw the dart to the stock for this coming year and also my pick for the job. Here we go.
Credibility. There's no real. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Just want to take a minute of your time today to give you an update.
All right.
That was a mistake. Hit 'em all.
All right, we'll, there.
Okay, so Dartman hit 36,000. I have it written down, 36,000. DLR is Digital Realty. They own, I looked this up before, so I got to cheat a little bit there. They're a REIT, so they're a real estate investment trust. They own a whole bunch of storage facilities for cloud storage. Is that an oxymoron? Yeah, but that's what they used to do, and then I guess that's not working out that great, so they're doing other stuff. They do have a 4.5% dividend, which you would expect a high dividend. So, now on to our panel Q&A. We're going to hopefully get this worked out with our technology correctly. This is Rotary's opportunity to get free answers to your valuable questions. Raise your hand. I'll attempt to call on you, and I'll do my best to catch everyone and be fair about it. Also, remember, because we had kind of a smaller turnout last year on this, please remember to make your dial pick. And if you're in person, make your dial pick. It's in the yellow sheet there. And then I just leave it on the table. I'll have our statistician come by and pick them up at the end. And then if you're on Zoom, then email Rob then and tell him what you got. If you do it after today, that's cheating. So don't do that. I would like to kick this off though, to get this started with the ceremonial first question. Gentlemen, are we headed into a recession? And if so, how do we manage it? And President Elizabeth will hand you the microphone.
That on it, we see it about a 50-50 chance of doing recession. You know, the consensus through most of the economists on Wall Street, we're putting about 60-40 that we'll probably have a recession. It's really so dependent on what the Fed does. Basically, the economists can go at this point. You look at the yield curve and saying the recession is coming. You look at employment, there's still 1.7 openings for every unemployed person. You see inventories, like the retailers are very high, but you see shipping costs from China to the US is down 90%. So you have all these cross currents, and it's really difficult to look at this stuff and see which direction it's going. And we've seen the tipping point, and we hope we've seen the tipping point in the last month or two. The Fed now looks like they're only going to raise, best bet is 25 basis points at the end of this month, maybe 25 again, and you may even stop after that. And that's not what we were hearing a couple months ago. So I believe when we say I think there's a good chance that there is a soft landing, we don't have a recession, or it should be mild. But with so many moving parts and so many unknowns, all it's going to take is one black swan event to make it really run one way or another. So it's kind of a lot of words, not saying a whole lot. But at this point, with so many variables coming off unprecedented financial things, unprecedented, war in Europe times, if you think, the more you think what's going to happen, probably the more money. Dave Fisher. Amen.
Thank you. Yeah, the bond market is telling us we're going to have to. The stock market is already active in both part like. And in our view, Putnam, we think we will experience a mild recession, given all that we can see. As muddy as it is, that'd be our bet. I'm probably 60% confident we'll have a mild recession, which is 40% of the home. So I like our chances. The thing to think about as we enter this year is that the reminder that the stock market is not the economy. The economy is not the stock market. If I were to tell you one thing, would it amaze you that the stock market, the S&P 500, has gone absolutely nowhere since last May? We are trading today where we were, I think, about last May 10th, 15th, somewhere. It's been talking loud, saying a lot of volatility. It's felt horrible, but we're actually at the same level. And if you look at what the market's done last year in its bigger moves, it's actually checked a number of the boxes that are associated with how the stock market acts in the face of a recession. We had about a 28% peak to trough move in the stock market. On average, going back 75 years, the S&P would drop 30% on the average recession, right? The PE of the stock market dropped about 26%, which is exactly in line with its long-term average associated with recessionary valuation. What we're waiting on, and this is the kind of wild card those of us that are in the business are looking for, is what are corporate earnings? And in general, corporate earnings estimates tend to fall about 15%. We're down about 6% from the peak of estimates so far. So if there's one last box we got to check, that might be it. But the stock market is already active or discounting as if we're going to go into this mild recession in 2023. So how do we do? I think your second question, what do we do about it? Yeah. Be in close contact with your financial advisor and understand that probably most of the damage is already done. The stock market is moving months and months ahead of the news we are just hearing about now. I think Ken made a great point. Just a month or two ago, people were thinking the Fed was going to hike to 5.5%, 6%. And here we are already starting to think that they're going to temper, maybe only 2 hikes left. They might already almost be done. The bond market's telling you that that's the case. I think one of the best investors in the world is a guy named Jeffrey Gundlach. All he does is bonds. And this last week he said, listen to the market, not the Fed. The market's always right. So the market, we would agree that if you believe that, buy into that, we probably have a mild recession this year. But we've never really had a recession with unemployment at under 4%. With earnings near record, they're not at record, but they're near record. And yet all this other bad activity is already kind of passed through the system. Maybe it's time to look forward and the market will see through these cloudy, muddy water we're trying to digest.
I'm going to add a couple of things to that. I'm going to stick with that mild recession. That's my personal view of it. One thing I wanted to point out that I didn't point out when I put up your stock picks that are there. The low for the Dow was 28,660. I think that was on September 30th. So that was really well put. That nothing's happened since May. It's just a lot of noise, but nothing's actually happened. I'll say one more thing on the recession thing is that everybody who wants a job pretty much has a job. And that's not very characteristic of a real recession. Question. Mr. Jerry Hill.
I have a question. Yeah. You're talking about, whatever the guy has that Tesla's. They're working a lot on electric trucks. And in 18, they were showing one that was supposed to be workable. To me, the electric truck is going to be a big part of our market in the near future. And I was wondering what's going on in that area. When will we start seeing those on the road? And that type of, how strong is it going to be?
Let me repeat the question on there.
Okay.
In short, what's going on with the electric truck industry?
Right.
What's our timeline look like with the electric truck industry? When are we going to start seeing them on the road?
Yeah.
Plug in your batteries.
Speaking of electric devices.
Right on cue.
So I will start with, I'm not a smart guy at all. I drive past you drive by. The opposite. That's, but you got to.
I'm not a vehicle and to be honest, I don't know a lot more than what I read, but I read a lot. You see a lot of them rolling out now. The big thing they're talking about, not now, but are the automated that they might bring out a number of years for, long haul trucking. If you're taking something from Port Los Angeles to North Carolina, you don't need somebody sitting there. You can set something on a truck and have it go through the interstate all the way. That's something that's on the horizon. Right now, there's a lot of competitors with this. I don't think Tesla's working on a long haul truck. I could be wrong, but I think Rivian might be. There's a number of firms that are looking at that. It's like it always comes down to the electric battery and what's on the cost benefit. And I really don't know those things. That's something you better reading somebody who's a professional in the industry because it's very complex things.
Rivian stock that dropped about 80% this past year. Dave, do you have anything to add on the truck?
I absolutely do not. Humbly would defer to Ken on the Tesla question.
Well, I'm not an analyst or anything about shot, but I'm really deep into AI. And as far as the interstate and the long haul trucking, between is actually a huge leader in that. Alongside Tesla, those are like the two biggest leaders because they're doing autonomous driving, but it still has to be human inside the vehicle or exiting the ramps and things like that. Nonetheless, though, they are cutting edge. They've already caught, I think it was closer to 200,000 hours as far as interstate driving. It's a real thing now. It's a really real thing. So yeah.
What company was that? Oh, it was Mercedes. Oh, Mercedes. Okay.
What's the name of the company?
Mercedes-Benz.
Mercedes.
Didn't I read that Meyer is using 2 electric?
I'm gonna kind of defer a little bit here. You're asking a lot of people about. Wow, you work for an electric company.
Hey, guess what? The consumers are be presenting on Rotary.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Raphael's thunder by answering the question.
Just like, other questions, Mr. Craig?
Question for Ken, talking about Tesla. Do you see them getting back to their $300 range in values? Like, so they're down to $100 right now.
It's such a volatile stock, and I don't know if I see that this year. I mean, I don't like buying. I like getting a company that I believe is going to do well as far as how the market goes, how the NASDAQ moves. I mean, there's a lot of things. How often Elon Musk is at CNBC. I mean, there's a whole lot of factors to the price of that stock other than producing high quality cars. So picking a number is a difficult thing to do. It's just, I think it's cheap right now. It's great.
Don?
So you're talking about there's a dichotomy between the low unemployment and higher wages and higher interest rates in the market and what's happening to. So you're all saying mild recession because the two almost stay different things historically. So is this an indication of a paradigm shift? Are we looking at what was normal and predictable is now no longer how the world of the market is going to work? And will this be the new normal? And will it be as volatile as the weather?
Short, strong, first 2 weeks. These are great questions. First of all, it's never different this time. I mean, it's a little different, spring, but the paradigm we don't think is shifting. What's happened this year is for the first time in 40 years, we've had real inflation. That was an excellent Yoki told right there.
I've been here twice.
Yeah, no, I know, sorry about that. But the thought is, this economy has to deal with that real inflationary pressure for 40 years, almost 50 years. And so what's different is we're digesting it. And the bond market's telling you how we went from zero, what was it, 50 basis points, 150 on the 10-year US Treasury last year at this time, to 4.25. We're back to 3.5%. This is just massive moves that you don't see normally. But as the market's starting to see the end of this inflationary period, I'm not saying we're going back to no inflation, but it is slowing rapidly. We're going to start to see this settle out. And we'd actually expect, well, I'll bet a huge cap, we'd expect volatility to kind of remain muted. If what we're seeing actually is what's reality. Okay, and the wild card are corporate earnings, and the wild card is what did the Fed actually do? We know how they're talking and we know what they've done. They have a knack of breaking things when they start to raise rates. But can they actually get through this raising cycle and not break something in the economy that would lead to a deeper recession, and then all bets are off what we're talking about. But it's going to take a few months for us to kind of see how that's going to work out. I'll give you one statistic that you can hang your hat on this year. I'll give you two that are optimistic. One is last year in about September, early October, was only the 10th time in 100 years that both the broader stock market and the broader bond market in the United States simultaneously traded below their 3-year moving average. Like, getting too technical, this does not happen. And normally bonds rally stocks, or when stocks are going higher, bonds are kind of not doing much. Well, both were down last year. We went back into the study, and so over the last those prior 9 times, we're in the 10th period. 9 times, what has a 60-40 portfolio? 60% stocks, 40% bonds. What has that done? In the year after both those asset classes have this trigger. And 100% of the time, that portfolio was positive, and it positive by an average of 19%. Now that happened back in October, so maybe half of that 19% is kind of already in. Okay, the markets have moved already, but you can hang your hat that historically, history's on your side for a pretty nice return if you're a balanced asset allocated investor. And then the second thing is we're in a uniquely positive political environment for the markets. We went back and measured all these periods where we've had a Democratic president and then at least a split Congress where either both or the House or Senate are held by Republicans. You don't need both. This time we don't have, we've got one that's held by Republicans. So gridlock is the whole key point. And when you've had a Democratic president and a gridlocked Congress, what do you think the average return of the S&P is in those periods? It's really good. Want to take a bet? Take a guess. Well, it's 37%. 37%. So that's 2-year period. Long story short, there's two things you can be somewhat optimistic on that history favors long-term investor and history favors the return of better returns after the year we just
I keep Dave Fisher in my back pocket all the time for these types of statistics. Were we done?
I think we're about out of time.
If you have any other questions, we'll hang out after. We got it.
Okay, final question.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. You're last.
Right now, Tesla has another truck from Mexico in California. With the Tesla, the battery is the biggest concern with the Tesla truck. We got pickup trucks now. I have a car with it right there. And as the temperature goes down, the efficiency of the battery. The food bank should be up for that. Because it cuts the battery away from the gas in the distance you can cut. That's the big factor. Especially on top of it, the battery. If they're not giving any information out for the test, so we're doing 2 things to the farmers. Plus that. Yes, we have a better chance of this 2 days. We're running fighting to but we're still having one next. And that's the fair.
That's perfect.
Thanks for that conversation.
All right. Thank you all. I want to thank you for the fabulous. 2 years in a row now. We're going to keep that going. Let's make it 3. And I will.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before folks take off, just wanted to close with our last couple of slides here. A reminder, we are going to be back here at the bank next Friday at noon, and we're going to have a presentation on astronomy from our very own Todd Slisher. He promises it will be out of this world. So don't miss it. And have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.